Hello and welcome to another exciting episode in my All the Mods 9 to the Sky series. You might notice there's a few little changes around here. Whereas before I only had, I think it was 8 of the reactors and they were all blazing. I've added another 6 that are spirited. In here I've cleaned up a little bit, and you might remember I had the big processor and a bit of storage. Well, now I've got an island of processors. And I've also installed a 256 ME source storage cell. We're collecting source from just over here. This is very simple. Just put a source jar here where it's collected into, and an import bus to drag it straight into the network. I've also created some islands on top, just for more space for future things to do, and I've started feeding the lava and witch water in here. As you can see, we have 9.2 thousand buckets of the lava and 8.6 of the witch water. I have expanded their capacity just with the same upgrades as the drawers below, and yeah, just means we've got a nice place to put our fluids for now, which moves on to what I want to do today, which is Industrial Foregoing. I want to finish off getting started 2, which is going to mean getting the island for villagers so we can do bees later on, and it's going to mean doing the marine fisher and the all laser base, and also looking into the wither. But I'd like to do hostile neural networks as well so that we can get some wither skulls and get as many withers as we want, but we're going to need to get the wither skeletons first from the nether. I'd also like to get blazers, a dragon, and the wither itself on the hostile neural networks, as well as a few other things for later on. But for the time being, we can just look at those. And under Industrial Foregoing, I'd also like to get latex, pink slime, and ether gas. So the first thing I'd like to do before jumping into Industrial Foregoing is I want to cross off this one here, which is already crossed off because I've got the items, but we're going to spawn in an island where villagers are going to be. We're going to take those villagers and I'll store them for later use for when I decide to do productive bees. It's a very quick thing to do here, so all we need is a ritual brazier like that, some sauce just like that, and then a ritual of Conjure Island Village. I'll get rid of these cobble that I've used just to make where it's going to go. And then all you do is you just right click on it and it spawns it in. There we go. And as you can see, we've got a little island and there's a few villagers. All I need to do is crouch and right click and I can pick them up. Have them all. For now, I'm just going to store the villagers out of the way. I'll put them in my backpack. Now that that's crossed off, we can begin Industrial Foregoing. So the first thing it wants us to make is a marine fisher. But to do that, we need plastic. And to get plastic, we're going to need to get some rubber. So as we get into Industrial Foregoing, I've pulled the quests up here. And this is the route we're going to follow. First off, we'll get a fluid extractor and put that next to some wood or some logs. We'll get that, pick that up, and we'll pop it in a latex processing unit to get some rubber. And then I think you put rubber inside a furnace to get plastic. And then we're going to use that plastic to make things like the dissolution chamber, which we can use to make our very first machine frames, which we can then use to make other machines and other parts. We're going to be aiming for a mob slaughter factory because that's going to get us the pink slime and liquid meat. Eventually we're going to get a stasis chamber, and when we put it underneath a wither, it's going to stop it from disappearing or dying, and it also stops it from attacking you. But I'll create a little chamber for it to go into. Similar to the mob farm that we had, it'll use the same glass, the stained glass. And yeah, but that's a little bit ahead. For now, I'm going to make these parts get a little area for them, and show you how I put them together. I've set up a little subnet here underneath one of the floating islands. Just like the power reactors, I've set this up with the items that I want. So far it's the acacia log, and that's because they give 4 millibuckets worth of latex using the fluid extractor, whereas the others tend to give between 1 and 2. So that one seems to be the best. I've got a pattern ready which uses wood essence to create the acacia wood, and I'll show you how I set this up. So I just pop these here like this. These are the fluid extractors. I'll pop the logs in front of them, just like that, so that I know the area I'm working with. I can click on these here and you can see they're highlighted. What I like to use is an active formation plane. I set this to use acacia logs, and it's set as blocks will be placed as a block. And what will happen is when this disappears, because this takes it in, turns it into latex, as you can see it's doing it now, that will disappear and the formation plane will put one back. I'll show you. Let's have again that. Here we are. So that's now online. Get rid of that, and it puts another one out. And because I've got this to set, this will just keep stocking them. And that will give us a passive supply of latex. Now, usually we would feed this into a latex processing unit, which is this here. But I'm not going to do that just yet, because first of all, we'll give these power because it speeds them up. And also, we want to store our latex for future use. We don't just want to pop it in there and have it all turn into rubber. There we go. We have power, which will make them a little bit faster. I think it's 4 times faster or something. I'll make a couple more formation planes because I want to fill these up as well. When we have enough for 1 bucket, I'm going to try and make some dry rubber so that we can then make some plastic. We can make seeds then, and we can have as much rubber as we need. And we'll just set a pattern up so that we can create plastic as and when we need it on demand. There we go, that's them. I'll just put the acacia log in here. And the reason we're using the active formation planes is because if you use the normal ones, they require a subnet to function, whereas these just continually drop the item that you're asking it to drop. So I managed to get 4 buckets full, and one of the rewards that we got here was a fluid tank. So what I'll do is I'll pop that here. So what you need to do here is unlock the drawer, have a pipe ready, just here, like that, and then you can empty it straight from these fluid tanks into the drawers. Be sure to lock it afterwards, otherwise if it does empty, it'll get refilled by something else. But that's going to be able to store up to 664,000 buckets of latex. And to ensure this continues to fill, what I've done is I've set some import buses here. And if I just put a few cables, boop, 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 boop. There we go, look at that. They're empty, and they will be filling now here. So we've now got passive latex generation. Next is to turn that latex into rubber. Because we have everything in our network, we should just be able to get the buckets there and go boop. And then pop that straight in. Nice and easy. We'll get a few buckets, I'll fill that up, and we'll get some dry rubber. I think this actually requires a bit of water. There we go, that's 4. And now, because we've got 4 rubber, we can just make rubber seeds, and we'll never need to use this anymore to make rubber. Isn't that great? There we go, that's the rubber seed. Expand that. And then we just give its essence a little home. Got space there. Pop some upgrades in there. And then that's dry rubber. And now we just leave that to build up. At the meantime, I can create a pattern for plastic, which is this here. And it's just dry rubber in a furnace. Middle click, set that to 100. And then now, when I pop this in my furnace, which will be right at the bottom of my list, here we go. Now I should be able to request plastic. There we go, look at that. Next, while this goes ahead and collects plenty of latex for me, and while my stores of dry rubber are building up, I've gone ahead and made some dissolution chambers. We're going to need 3 at least. Here's how I'm going to set them up. So the one on the bottom is for things that require latex. The one in the middle will use pink slime, and the top one will use ether gas. I've not got any of the patterns for them too, but I've already got the efficiency, speed, and processing tier 2 upgrades for the Industrial Foregoing machines, and I've also got the simple machine frame. I've also set up all the other crafts that are going to be needed to make those. So what I'll do, this will have latex just feeding out constantly. This one will be pink slime. And then finally, as I said, this one will be ether gas. The ether gas is the one that we get from the wither. And we'll work our way to that eventually. So that's online. As you can see, my latex is filling up in there. What I can do now, or what I should be able to do, is make add-ons. So let's make a couple of, let's say, 4 speed ones. Look at that. The other thing I'm missing is power. There we go. Now that they have power, let's watch this. That's 1. And then we pop the speed upgrade in there. That's 2. That's 3. And that's 4. So we'll give each one of these 1. I'm not going to bother giving these 1 for the time being. But I will want to put one on our mob slaughter factory, which I'll show you how to set up soon. But let's get a couple more of these. So now I can request add-ons, and I can also use them for these simple machine frames, which are going to be used to make the other machines. And one of them is this here, which is going to be my new passive mob farm. All I do for this here, which points forward, and as you can see, that's the area that it's going to slaughter in. What we want is an upgrade for that. That'll be a range upgrade, but I'll also want a nutritious chicken feed for a golden egg that creates delightful dirt. And there we are. I'll make that, and then exactly the same as the cursed egg, we just find a chicken, and then it goes boom. That has produced this here, a golden egg. We'll use that last once everything else is set up here. Let me go create a range upgrade, and I'll show you how this works. One thing to keep in mind on these is when you set up the pattern providers, you need to go on here and go to output and select the one that the pattern provider's on as push, and it will push it out. So I've created a tier 3 range upgrade, and as you can see, it's perfectly aligned, barring the very back here, with our little mob slaughter factory. I think I'll just put some things here to cover this area, and then I'll cover this up, fill in the dirt, and then I'll show you how this will work. I've chosen to use just normal glass here, purely so I can see inside. And there we are. I've popped a few lights in here to make sure they can still spawn. And then we just use this egg right on the centerpiece. And then they spawn. The reason I've put dispensers here with water buckets in is because over time, just inside on the grass, flowers and grass will grow, which prevents the mobs from spawning, which is a right faff. So I've put a timer here on, I think it's 80? Yeah, 80 ticks, which will just mean that every 4 seconds the water dispensers pushes it all away and gets rid of any grass or anything else growing, which means the mobs can still keep spawning. We can do exactly the same trick as we did here by putting one of the redstone signals underneath to spawn them super quick, and I might just do that. But first, I need to add power to this. And that's power, and as you can see, we've got liquid meat and pink slime. What we'll do now is, if I just get my configuration tool ready, we should be able to open these two, and to speed it up, we'll pop these acceleration cards in. That's that. Now, as you can see, we've got liquid meat, that's locked, and pink slime. Those will just continue to feed in, and the pink slime will be set to, or it should be set already actually, to go to here. Look at that. That's just going to fill up nice and slow, as the latex did. I don't think I'm going to bother putting the redstone signal into this just yet, because it seems we're getting quite a bit of pink slime just from what we've got at the moment. There's already 21.9 buckets in there. Moving on to the getting started 2 quests again, we can now do the marine fisher. I've just made one of those, and we're very close to getting the wither. But before that, we'll move on to Hostile Neural Networks, just to get some extra loot, a bit of extra resource generation, and also to make sure that we can get the wither skulls. The marine fisher, I think I'll pop up here with these. You just need a 5x5 area of water. It sits on top of it and it fishes for you. It can get things like fish, any sort of like kelp, anything else you can get while you're fishing, and also enchanted books. So that's pretty good. I decided I'm not going to bother doing the marine fisher just yet. I've put that to the side. For now, though, I'd like to jump onto Hostile Neural Networks so that we can eventually get ether gas from the wither. We're doing this so that we can get things like blaze rods from blazers and wither skulls from the wither skeletons. So I've made these. We've got a simulation chamber, I've got 4 of them actually, and a loot fabricator. The simulation chamber will take the model frameworks and it will turn them into these prediction matrices, and the loot fabricator will turn those into items. So what I'll do, I'll go to the Nether and I'll use one of these model frameworks on a blaze and another one on a wither skeleton, and then I'll kill a few. And then I can pop them in here, the simulation will run, and over time we'll get items. Let me show you. So conveniently, my portal spawns right here. Going to use one here while we're here. You just right click on it. Same with these, right click on them. Not going to kill them just yet, let's get the other one as well. And right click on it, and then what we do, we use the deep learner, we right click on that, and you pop up to 4 data models in it at a time. And then when you kill them, you can see the data model there. If I actually pop it on me, you can see in the top left-hand corner there, 5 remaining for the wither skeletons, because I've just killed one. It's really barely any effort when you've got the everlasting abilities on. I'm fireproof, barely take any damage, I've got so many extra parts, it's just much easier. As you can see in the top left, the wither skeleton and the blaze are down as basic models now. That means that when I put them in the simulation chamber, they will be ready to run and slowly get me items. The more I kill these though, the higher percentage chance you've got of items or a successful simulation running, which ultimately gives you items. So we killed a few of each, and we ended up with the basic basals, the wither skeleton, and the blaze, though we've got advanced. So let me show you how I set this up. I've decided to use the island with the Industrial Foregoing stuff on for the Hostile Neural Networks, but what I want to do is change the interface to one of these, a extended interface. It just means it has more ports here, more places for items to come in. And that's because when we have more and more mobs that we want to get items from, we're going to get different matrices from them. So I'll get rid of this, pop this in to replace it, and then we'll just put the log back. But as you can see, there's more here, but also there's another page. So this won't get filled up so easily. Now that that's there, it's simple as adding in a crafting card, as we had before. And we also want it to call these the prediction matrix. I've set a pattern up for them, so we'll get those as and when we need. And now I'll just set a little area where the Hostile Neural Network stuff can go. So the simulation chambers, I'll probably just have 2 like that. And then we can have this above and in the middle. And that's just for me to maximize the space that's in there. So I decided to do import-export buses for each of these, and for the simulation chamber, we'll set the prediction matrix to output. Everything else will go back into the network. For the loop fabricator, what we'll do is for each of these, we've got the blaze, which goes up here. We've got the basals, and then we also have the wither skeleton. So for each of these, when their prediction comes through, it'll be set to go up here, and then we'll also set this, the interface, to pull each one of their predictions. There we go. So I've decided to pull it from the side here underneath, and that's that. And then I just need to give it power. They're all powered now. So as you can see, the simulation runs, the prediction matrix goes directly into the slot, and then eventually we'll have a successful one. Oh, we've had one there with blaze. So when that's successful, you get one of these, a blaze prediction. That's gone back into the network now. And if I can grab it, just here. And what I want to do is set it as an item for this to stock. We'll set as many as it can have. And then we want to set this as an output. And there we go. You've got to come in here and select the item you want. So for now, we'll have blaze rods. And then each time one of those goes in, it'll select the one that it got before. So I'll wait for each of the wither skeleton and the basals to finish, and then we'll get those hooked up as well. So that's them all set up. The only one that's not given one yet is the basals. So I'll just leave it there for a bit. In the meantime, I think it might be a good time to go and beat the Ender Dragon. And then we can go and we can get a data model for that as well. To get to the end, you need one of these, an end cake. I'll pop it in my base just here. and delete. Takes you straight over to the end. And I brought a few other items with me as well. I've got some arrows, a basic bow, and 2 model frameworks. One of them is going to be for the dragon, and one I'll try and find shulkers. I've also brought the end crystals, which you can use to re-summon the dragon. So I'll be fighting it a few times to make sure we get the model framework for it. Just like with the others. Come up. There we go. Took a while to get, but I caught one. And that needs 2. So I only need 2 of those. That's one dragon. Now we wait for the second. So all you do for the next dragon is you just put these end crystals here. They're easy enough to make. I think it's just glass panes and the eye vendors. Pop 4 like that, and it resummons the dragon. And that's 2. There we go, that's that done. And we've got a basic model for the dragon. Now we'll just find an end city. And it's over that way. Here's an end city. Now we just need to find a couple of shulkers. We need to kill 6 of those. And there we go, we've got a basic model. So that was a successful trip. And what I'll do is I'll take the basiles out of there. I'll pop it back in the network. And I'll replace it with the Ender Dragon, so I don't have to make another one. And I'll put the shulker just in the other side. We should also now have a healthy supply of wither skulls, which means we can do the wither. So I was thinking a good place for the wither is over here, right at the back, out of the way. What we do is we just create a little platform where the wither's going to go. So that's going to be its shape inside. We don't want it to be able to get out the back there. Like that. And then we also want most of the front covered. And we'll give it 1 space above it. So now I can still get in there. There we go. So I've made a little contained unit for the wither. This just stops any of its blasts from getting out of there and breaking my base. And I can just sit in here. There we go. That's that on there. That in there, and we need 6 of them. No, that's never good. Okay. Things we learn for next time. There we go. That was a pain. Let's hope we can contain the next one. There we go. So that's a bit better. I'm just giving it 1 more space above. Now it can't get out and destroy my base. And then what I've also done, I've left the bottom open so that we can much easier pop these in. There we go. Basic model for the wither. And I've already set up this here ready for now, and I'll just get another import-export bus. Boop, 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 boop. And then it's just power, And then it's just hooking it to the network. Pop it in this bottom one here. And then all we do is we wait for the wither one to give us a prediction. And we'll set that up. And then that will give us several nether stars. It'll help our production. So now that our nether stars are building up, the last two things to do on this quest are going to be to make a time in a bottle and to make an all laser base. The all laser base I'm going to use with a stasis chamber with the wither so that I can get ether gas. Let me get the time in a bottle and I'll show you how to set up the all laser base as well. So a time in a bottle is such a simple recipe. We've got plenty of netherite ingots now and we just need to make a clock. And it's good to get this as early on as you can, really, because once you get it, it starts massing up time. And it'll show you the total time accumulated. So as the videos progress, you'll see how much time I spend doing between episodes here, as well as all the other stuff when I come back to the time in the bottle. And it also has your stored time. When you use it on stuff by crouching and right-clicking on something, it will make it go faster. So for bees, it's really good to spend some time on it and then make the honey or the honeycombs produce much faster. And it just saves you a bit of time in the future when you're just sat idling waiting for things to progress. Now the next thing is an ore laser base. I'm going to make one just like this, but I think I'll just do 2. So we'll need 2, 4, 6, 8, we'll need 10 of the drills and 1 of the bases. But we need the fluid base as well. The fluid one is the one that's going to get us the ether gas. So it's quite quick and simple to set up the all laser base. First of all, because we're using this on the wither and we're wanting ether gas, we're going to want to keep the wither in one place. That is a stasis chamber there. We'll get some power going to that, and that should hold the wither in place for us. On top, we want to put the laser base right above where the wither is going to be. And there. Next, we want to put some laser drills down. While I put these down, I'm going to get the add-ons ready. So we'll have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, let's say 12 of each. That'll be of the speed, the efficiency, and the processing. So these laser drills need to be facing the base. And what we want is we want that bit there to be facing that way. And there we go. This doesn't need powering, but these do. So we'll need to bring power just up here like this. There we go. Now they're all powered, as is the stasis chamber underneath. As you can see, that's the working area. So that should contain the wither. And now the last thing we need is a purple laser lens. There we go. So now I will put the add-ons in here. You know they're connected to this because they're feeding into it here. There we are. That's a purple laser lens. And then we just hook this up to our network. There we are, that's hooked up and that's online. The last thing we need to do is just summon a wither. That's trapped and unable to finish. And this should be pulling in some ether gas soon. So the first time I did it 1 too high. And now it should work. I'm just replacing these. And there we go. There we go. And that's our ether gas. So now if I check, because I've already checked the draw, that's ether gas. Now it is filling up, but because we've set this to output, it's filling this first. So once that's full, this drawer here is locked to ether gas and will slowly pick back up. Just before we end, I thought I'd jump in and make a quick note that when we killed the dragon, we got a quest reward, which was a dragon head. And obviously, we also got a dragon egg. So I've set these up with Zycraft extractors, and I put the box down first for the egg, put that upside down by putting a block above it to put it against, and then putting the dragon egg on top. It was a bit of a faff, but we've now got dragon eggs being made, and for dragon's breath, you just put the dragon head down, put the extractor against it, and then put the draw just at the end for it to feed into. Now we'll get both eggs and breath, which I think we need for future quests, and I'll just let them sit and accumulate. I will feed them into the network probably between episodes, and I'll set up another drawer in there for them. So I think that is a good point to end on. We've got villagers. We've got Hostile Neural Networks set up with blaze rods, Nether Stars, and shulker shells passively accumulating in our network. We've got Industrial Foregoing started with Latex, Pink Slime, and Ether Gas ready. And we've ended it with Dragon's Eggs and Dragon's Breath passively generating. I think that's a good point to end on. We've got everything ready now for next episode, which will look into all the quests for the star. And hopefully we'll even get our first Aldermodium ingot and work our way up to Unobtainium. Thanks a lot for joining me. If you've made it this far, I've had a great time. I hope you have. Bye for now.